Hi, everybody. It's Jennifer Finch, Public Information Officer for Weld County, and I am here again with Dr. Joe Sertich from the Denver Museum of Nature and Science for yet another exciting episode of Ask Dr. Joe. I feel like we should have theme music.
I know we need a song.
We'll have to work on that.
That'll be
Get
our
those
next
dinosaur
contest.
songs out
We
there.
can do a theme song contest.
There you go. Yeah, contests have become my life lately, so it's been fun. And let's talk real quickly. I know we talked a little bit about the last time, but the Pops contest, that was fun. I want to thank everyone again for submitting your artwork, beautiful artwork. I know we announced the winners a few weeks ago, and I am working through making a post for every entry that was there because it's just too good to stick in a filing cabinet and say, wasn't that fun? There's some beautiful work. So I know I had one question here from Clarence who asked if the other entries would be shown and made available for the public to see, and absolutely they're going to be. So working through those posts, you'll see them for quite a while here on out. So keep an eye out for it. And again, I just thank everyone for participating in that. It was a lot of fun and amazing talent out there.
Yes.
So quick update on Pops is he's still hanging out downstairs at the museum, right?
Yeah, so he's still hanging out behind the scenes. We are scheduled to do some official photography of Pops on both sides starting next week. So we'll have it down in our photo studios with our DMNS photographer, Rick Wicker, who will do a bunch of photography, giving nice, beautiful glamour shots of Pops, but also photography so that when we get to the publication stage, we have good photos. And that's because Pops will be on permanent display back in Greeley. And so this is our only chance to get good publication quality photos before Pops heads back up to its final destination.
A little bit of a fashion shoot, right? A little bit of glamorazzi for Pops.
Totally. We'll dress it up for all the different seasonal events. We'll get a Santa hat for Pops, and that way
Yes.
we can do all 12 months of Pops.
There you go. Calendar to come soon.
Totally.
Good deal. And then we have some paperwork that the county and some other entities are working through, but the next stop for Pops will be to go over for casting. So that will be exciting. Do you want to talk a little bit about the gentleman who works with you guys on your casting?
Yeah, so we are currently planning to work with Rob Gaston at Gaston Design to do the molding, restoration, and full reconstruction of Pops. So Rob will help us put the frill back together so that the final original specimen of Pops has all the important bones back in the mount. But he will also create what's called a research cast. So that's a cast that will stay here at DMNS for visiting researchers, graduate students, to come visit if they want to take measurements or see Pops up close. Because Pops will be up in Greeley behind glass, it won't be as easily accessed by researchers. And then the third thing he's going to do is create a full skull reconstruction. So he'll take all the distortion that's preserved in Pops, so there's some compression from side to side. He'll pop it back out, and it'll be a full skull as it was when Pops was alive. So this will be the kind of skull that you see at a museum or that you see traveling around to different events. So this is a full reconstructed, beautiful skull that will be produced for hopefully education, outreach, and full display.
That'll be exciting. It'll be nice to see that cast without the compression, because if you've seen photos of Pops in the case, he's pretty narrow.
Yeah.
Uh, I would guess quite a bit more narrow than he actually was in real life, but
Yeah.
yeah, he's pretty skinny, so maybe he'll fill out a little bit, so that'll be fun. And if you're new to this project, just a quick explanation as to why the fossil's coming back to Weld County instead of staying at the museum. It's part of the agreement. The fossil was donated to the county by the Mapelli family, who owned the ranch where Pops was found, and it was donated by resolution. Under the guise that that fossil always remain on display in Weld County. So the museum, the state, they've been great in working through the various logistics to make sure that that can happen. And that was important to the county and Dr. Joe and the museum. They've been great in being supportive of that. And so it's really the best of both worlds, that it comes back here for Weld County residents to enjoy, but the museum has a cast and access for researchers to look at it and study it. And of course, people are welcome to come up here to see it when he returns. So that's exciting news. And I'm really grateful that everyone's worked together to make sure that can happen.
Yeah, it's really important, I think, personally to me, to have fossils like these go back to where they came from. And so the people there know a little bit more about their heritage and the rocks that are under their feet, and can be inspired by dinosaurs and other parts of our prehistory, and maybe become a scientist or maybe become an educator. So I think it's really important to have these fossils back in the area where they came from.
Exactly. So thanks to everyone who's helping make that happen. So we have a few questions. Again, we call this Ask Dr. Joe for a reason, and it's not to hear Jen talk, it's to hear Dr. Joe talk. So we do have a few questions that we'll ask Dr. Joe about. And the first one comes from Clarence Toto. I'm sorry, you guys know I'm bad at this, so I'm trying. But I got to give a shout out to Clarence. He sent in several entries to the art contest, and they were all amazing. And we will show those. In fact, for Clarence's, I think I'll do all of his posts at once in several posts, because they relate somewhat together, obviously with his style and the subject matter, but very brightly colored. They were beautiful, but he also had a 2 or 3, sorry, Clarence, I can't remember them all, but image paintings that were dinosaurs in modern day situations, which I thought was so fun. I don't know if you remember those. There were a lot of entries, but Clarence, you did an amazing job. And yes, we're going to showcase your work. So please look out for that. But Clarence had a question, and it says, concerning the reconstruction of Pops, will there be a journal article that will be released in the foreseeable future wherein the features of Pops will be redescribed in detail? And if so, will that publication be open access?
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about the ultimate destination of Pops being back on display up in Greeley at the Weld County offices. And that's one side of things. The other final destination for Pops is in the scientific literature. And so as part of this project, and the reason we're doing all of the restoration, all the repreparation, the photography, is to get Pops back out into the scientific realm. And so the entire reason we brought Pops into the museum and gave it an accession and catalog number was so that we could publish on it. And so, yes, we plan to do a full detailed analysis of Pops, and I'm doing that right now. So a description of the skull and the other bones of Pops. We've also done work already on the histology, so slicing some of the ribs and looking at how old Pops was when Pops died. And all that will be released in a scientific publication. And I personally believe in open access. And so that means it'll go to a journal where people around the world can access it for free on the internet. And so those are journals like PeerJ or PLOS ONE. There are several other online venues where it's still a scientific publication, great detailed figures and descriptions can be included, but it's free. And so that's something that I think is really important for a public specimen like Pops, is that it's open access and can be viewed by anyone, whether you're a kid or a school teacher working in Weld County, or if you're on the other side of the globe, like Clarence is.
Yes, definitely. I think that's great, and that's so exciting to hear. I know we've had discussions about that before, but I'm glad you brought that up so that people know, because I know the Mapelli family, they were big believers in education. Terry Mapelli, who was Sonny Mapelli's daughter, she was a teacher here in town. She would bring her kids to the Centennial Building when Pops was down there, which is just a few miles from where I am now. She would bring her students to see the skull at that building. They would have a field trip, and her dad would always come and meet the kids there and talk to them about the fossil and the ranch. And there's a lot of fond memories of locals of that happening. So it's great that what you're going to be doing is going to be accessible to people around the world to continue that education. I think that's great. And I think that's exactly what the Mapelli family would want. So that's exciting. All right. We've got another question from a Pops fan, and this is Diego Lopez. Diego also entered our art contest with an amazing image, and I believe quite an explanation on the image, which was really cool. So thank you, Diego, and I appreciate your questions. Diego also had one about any research that would be available, which you've already answered. So I'll skip to his second question, which is, will the Denver Museum of Nature and Science go back into Colorado's last remaining dinosaur outcrops and Cretaceous formations like around Boulder or Greeley? And will there be formal excavations done to find other dinosaurs?
Yeah, we are actually working right now with different landowners of both of those areas. So I've been in touch with the folks over at Boulder County and their Parks and Open Space team about a project in the same rock units called the Laramie Formation, and going back out there to look for fossils. Some of you might have heard in the news way back at the beginning of the year, there was an 8th grade student who found a T-Rex tooth from those deposits. So that's the same age as Pops. And then I've been working with Jennifer to contact the original landowners, or the landowners where Pops was originally found, along with the U.S. Forest Service, who manage a lot of the property around that private land, to go back and look for some of the fossils in Laramie Formation right where Pops came out of the ground. And I went back out there back in April with some of the students that I was teaching at Colorado State University, and we walked around on some of the state land that's out there, and we actually found lots of cool stuff, including a really nice part of a turtle, and some other dinosaur bones, and even things like clams and snails that would have lived at the time of Pops. And so, yeah, that's part of our plans. We're hoping to go back out for more time, probably next summer. So we've got to get all of these relationships made, all of these permits signed and dealt with. And we'll be back out in all of these areas by next June or July, looking for more of the dinosaur story, but also the other little bits of Pops's history.
That'd be great. So I'm going to throw in a question here, and everyone take me with a grain of salt. I'm learning more than most people who are following this project. You guys all know this, but let's say that you go back out in the area where Pops was found, and you find more Triceratops bones.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Pops was the first complete Triceratops skull found in Colorado. So let's say you find some other pieces. Everybody bear with me, would you be able to tell if one of those pieces, if you were to find one, actually belonged to the specimen that we have?
Yeah, so we're hoping to go back to the original excavation, and I suspect, given the size and scale of the original excavation, which was way back in 1982, so we're coming up on 40 years ago, I suspect that we'll be able to identify the exact hole in the ground. There'll still probably be a depression. And if we scrape around and find other bone going in, I think there's a high likelihood that that'll be associated from the original skeleton. So I think that we can say for sure goes to Pops. There might even be the chance of finding some of the chunks that fit right back on. So we know we have like the left lower jaw, but it's missing the back half. So we might find a chunk of that back half that glues right back on. And if that's the case, then we'll know for sure that belongs to Pops.
Yeah.
But in the area around that, there's probably other things. So historically, things like turtles and crocodiles, T-Rex teeth have been found on those same little patches of badlands that are preserved out in the grasslands near Briggsdale, Colorado.
That'd be fascinating. Very cool. All right, I've got let's do 2 more questions. These both come from Mackenzie Boyd. Mackenzie sent them back in June, so I've been sitting on it. Although we did ask the very one important question, which is, what dinosaur would Dr. Joe ride into battle? So if you want to know what his answer was, you're going to have to go back a few episodes to probably the last episode, or no, in June. So we've done a couple since then, but it's hidden in there. It's a good one, so you have to find that. But Mackenzie also asked, why did Triceratops have ridges on their frill?
Yeah, so the entire external surface of the frill on both the front and the back is covered by a rugose network of little canals, pits, foramina, so little holes. And we think that the frills of things like Triceratops were covered with big polygonal scales. So on Triceratops, from other parts of the Rocky Mountain West, there are patches of skin that have been preserved, and they look like big rounded or polygon-shaped scales. And under that was a network of blood vessels and nerves that coursed between the skin and those scales and the bone. And they left their little trails as these grooves and paths on the bone. And so that was probably related to supporting that skin. So that was blood vessels and nerves that went out to the skin. But they may have also been used for things like thermoregulation. So you think about really large animals like elephants today, they use their ears, these big surfaces, to pump hot blood into to try and cool off. So then they'll move their ears around and cool that blood down before it goes back into their body. And so that's possible that some of these horned dinosaurs, like Pops, might have shunted really warm blood when they became overheated up into that frill to then cast off the heat before the blood went back into the body. So maybe that's what they were doing.
Wow, that's so fascinating. One last question. I lied. Let's do 2 more questions. She asks, why were the arms of a T-Rex so short?
So the big mystery with T-Rex, among many other mysteries, but the biggest mystery and the question I get most often is, why are their arms so short? And it's something that we don't know yet. One of my colleagues from grad school has been working on this problem for over a decade now, and she has looked closely at the anatomy of the arms, where the muscles attach. They were functional in some way, so you often think of T-Rex as having functionless arms, but they were very muscular, they were very strong, the joints between them were well developed, they were able to flex them and move them, but for what purpose is difficult to know from the fossil record. So they're small, they were probably useful for maybe stabilization, helping it stand up, possibly for mating or things like that. We just don't know, but we do know that they were useful just by the fact that they had well-developed muscles and joints.
Interesting. All right, last question. What dinosaur was closest in height to a man?
Well, there are many, many different types of dinosaurs. So there's over 1,000 recognized different species of dinosaurs. And we often think of dinosaurs as being the huge ones, so the ones that you see at a museum when you walk in the doors, things like a T-Rex or a big Apatosaurus, the big long-necked dinosaur. But most dinosaurs of that 1,000 species were the size of a person or smaller. And so we can say that probably more than half of the known dinosaurs were in the range of a human or even a small dog. And so just off the top of my head, dinosaurs like Pachycephalosaurus, Thescelosaurus, from the end of the time of the dinosaurs, they might have overlapped with Pops, would have been about the same height as a person. So somewhere between 5 and 6 feet tall.
I had no idea, because you're right. When you think about dinosaurs, you think about the big ones.
Always the big ones, yeah. And those
Yeah.
get preserved really well because they have big bones, but there were lots of little ones too.
Interesting. Great. Well, if you've noticed, I think this is one of the few episodes where we both have backgrounds pasted in behind us on our Teams call here, indicative of how busy things have been. Mine is not as glamorous. What's behind this scene here, it's just all paperwork. But Dr. Joe, you said you had lots of bones and more interesting things there. But I think as the summer wraps up and everyone's trying to get back into the groove of life and work, things have been a little busy, but I had to laugh that we both today decided to throw up some backgrounds to hide the chaos behind us. So well, I want to thank you again for taking time. I know you're busy, but I really appreciate you answering these questions. And I know the people who are following Pops appreciate it too. I want to thank you guys for emailing in questions. It's always fun. I'm learning so much, and I know other people are learning. I've heard from various places, various teachers who are watching this and are incorporating this into their classrooms, which I think is so exciting. In fact, I will be working on piecing apart some of these past Ask Dr. Joe's so that it's just Dr. Joe answering the question. Will just get me out of the mix there. But it's been fun to get that feedback from everyone. So again, I appreciate everyone who's following the Pops Project. Keep watching our social media. Just Google or look for Pops Triceratops. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You'll be seeing more of the artwork that was submitted for the Pops contest. If you have questions, you can send them to pops@discoverweld.com. We're going to do another Dr. Joe. We've been trying to do these monthly, so we'll set one up for October, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
It's already September.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Dr. Joe, do you think we should do another pumpkin carving contest?
Yeah, I can't believe that we're already at that season again, but yeah, let's do it. Let's do
All
another
right.
Pops pumpkin carving contest. All right. Fine.
You guys heard it here, so look for details. I'll get that together here in the next few weeks. But if you missed that last year, if you go to discoverweld.com, you will see a menu. Click on Pops the Triceratops, and you'll see our video from last year. You'll also see it on Facebook. Or I can't even remember what I call it. Pops's Perfect Pumpkin Parade or something, but we had amazing painted and carved pumpkins. Even Dr. Joe entered, so it was great. So we'll do that again. So I will quit talking. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Joe, thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will talk soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.